welcome back to the rationalinvestor.com Broiler Chicken Show. Trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the rationalinvestor.com's Broiler Chicken Show. I've already done the little intro, so I guess I don't need to do it twice. I have to train myself. Anyway, welcome back to the Frivolity. It is 27th of October, so October is almost done. Whoosh, down goes another month. It feels like October just started. Anyway, 27th of October, 2024, 11:21. Actually, starting a little bit late here. Only do maybe about an hour and a half kind of idea. You know, of course, once 1 o'clock rolls around, Brian's got to get the hell out of here. We'll say, though, it was awfully handy. Handy, that's not the right word. Encouraging. Mentally uplifting. I'm not quite sure. Last time I was talking with you guys, I guess it was a Wednesday. I guess it was Friday. Anyway, your best wishes and your positive karmic feedback and thoughts for Liam. Greatly appreciated. He seems to be in relatively good spirits these days, so that's a good thing, I suppose. Falls are always challenging, especially when we go through this seasonal change. It was always really tough on Joanne. So, anyway, geez, I haven't actually thought those kind of thoughts in a while. Anyway, miss you, Jojo. Wish me luck on trying to make a positive difference in these people's lives. That's what this is all about. Yeah, we got a few people over there on YouTube. That's kind of encouraging. Sometimes we can get the viewership up on these videos to fairly substantial numbers here. I was actually a bit surprised, but I think I'm supposed to say hit the subscribe button and be sure to hit the bell for notifications so that you get notified when we go live. All that kind of fun talk. Don't really do a lot of actually public interacting these days. Got this Sunday show. Used to do a little thing Monday to Friday. Now the only public broadcast that we do is on Thursdays. Seems, I guess, Julian has settled into to doing a broadcast on Thursdays for the public. So I hope you're enjoying that. And if anything, I'm kind of pleased to see Sjord basically has his FA portfolio up and running on the site. And Julian is going to embark on trading a trading plan. So everybody wish Julian best of wishes following his plan and being the demonstrator of best practices. Got a couple little crypto portfolios running on the website right now. We had fun with the little old lady risk management approach to venture capital investing in previous cycles, and sort of got another one up and running for this particular cycle. Didn't really participate too much last cycle, other than actually we ran the account up pretty nice, sitting on pretty fat gains. Unfortunately, I fell into a very typical crypto trap and lost a fairly sizable amount of money to a hacker. So that unfortunately kind of really bummed me out and took a lot of the wind out of my sails. But nonetheless, even with the current position of the account and all of the crypto market and stuff basically on its knees right now, account balances are still relatively attractive. I have been talking to people a lot recently about, this being a minor bull cycle pivot. Probably going to be very similar to the, maybe. It'd be interesting to see. It should be similar to the sort of like the 2013 bull cycle. I remember that well. Actually, that's when I bought my first altcoin over on Crapsy. I don't know whether any of you remember Crapsy. Cripsy? So that's a million years ago. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a similar cycle to that. Having said that, I definitely think we are heading into a big orgy of venture cap mania. The only problem is I think we have a fairly big fundamental event here coming up here in a week or so, and then I think that there's going to be quite a bit of political tumult between now and sort of inauguration day, when if there has to be a change of power. I'm not even sure if that's the right word to use or not, because actually the way the US system is set up, and this is one reason why I like the US system so much, is there's so many checks and balances that no one part of the US government is really overly powerful, other than maybe the bankster crooks, but we don't want to start that stuff. They're not even part of the government, but they sure weasel their way in to make it look like they're part of the government. Jerks. Money masters. Do we need to go down that road? 10 minutes later, everybody watch this video. 3.5 hours change your life. You know how the story goes. But I wouldn't be surprised. There's this is an interesting, and I think it is so significant. Unfortunately, I think actually for the younger generation, they're kind of not really interested in politics. I think what happens is as you get older and sort of move through your life cycle, become a parent, right? Start paying taxes and shit, and actually seeing what a waste all this stupid woke has nothing to do with it, but the idiocy of modern day political system, the way it's set up. And I think it was actually set up this way right around the turn of the 20th century. And we've been living in the aftermath of the way they set this system up. I think you could argue basically just before the start of the First World War. And Western politicians are encouraged to spend money that they don't really have, and I think it's all part of the plan. 80-year cycles, just add a zero onto the end of all your prices every 80 years. The debt never goes down, always goes up, and it's just a never-ending inflating bubble. I will say though, every once in a while, you get an individual character that seems to come on the scene that tries to check these damn Rothschild bastards. Interesting enough, it was like people like Thomas Jefferson, Ben Franklin. In fact, I think you could make the argument that half of the reason why the United States of America did as well as it did was because of this concept called Confederate script. And I think you could make the argument that prior to the reestablishment of control by these bankster crooks in 1913, with the creation of the U.S. Federal Reserve Board, to all intents and purposes, we were operating in a Confederate script kind of environment here in, just decentralized. That's probably the best way to describe it. Then, of course, they consolidated power, and here's the world that we live in now. Anyway, rant, blah, blah, blah. Not really constructive. Let's keep moving on. So, huge political event, and actually interesting. I was very curious. I really did want to see how Donnie would act, right? I mean, God, you watched that Biden. I mean, he just looked like an absolute doofus. And frankly speaking, I don't think he would have made it through an interview with Joe Rogan. But how do you spend your Saturday mornings? Usually, I'm teaching myself about different concepts. Actually, this gentleman here, he makes a very, very good argument that, ironically enough, global warming, the CO2 concentrations in the atmosphere, ironically enough, they're historically at extremely low levels. And so if the earth was just sort of balanced over its like, five, 4 billion year history, and we just had like average CO2 levels, it'd be like 100 times what their current rates are, which I found hilarious. As an interesting tidbit that he mentioned. But fascinatingly, because of the increase of CO2 in the atmosphere, the world, the globe, is actually greening. It's actually getting better, which is just perfect. I mean, what an easy way for Mother Nature to derail this entire fucking train wreck of bullshit of this whole it started out as global warming, then they had to change their tune to, oh, it's climate change. Like, hasn't the climate been changing its entire history? I mean, I don't know whether you're aware, but in the 15th century, in the wintertime, you used to be able to walk across the Thames. So you're trying to tell me that this is all about 21st century and 20th century industrialization, all that. But back in the 15th century, of course, and of course, as the 15th century progressed, the ice actually started to recede, and the Thames no longer. And of course, there is no ice on the Thames at all now in the wintertime. I always found that hilarious. So like these idiots that are trying to jam through this whole bankster fucking, and I might even argue that it basically developed after the end of the dot-com boom. And I remember specifically Al Gore didn't have a job after January 1st, 2000, I guess 2001, January 6th, 2001. And all of a sudden, they just went on this crazy, stupid global warming pitch. And back then, they used to literally post slides that by 2025, half of the state of Florida will be underwater. I don't think any of that's happened. But anyway, so I did find it. I mean, this was really, really interesting. And also, too, really super interesting about this guy's commentary. He doesn't swear. He's very level headed, very calm, just simply tells his story. And look how Google instantly tries to shadow ban. I mean, there's only 80 views of this video. I mean, it's remarkable how, very much like what happens with our videos, right? You just get like back shelved by these social media platforms and stuff like that because it's not the correct messaging. Here nor there, but I definitely found it very amusing, the data about how actually there are more plants and the world is greening because of the increase of CO2, which I thought was just beautiful. Anyway, that wasn't the main event yesterday. The main event yesterday, and actually, because I get up at some ungodly hour every Monday to Friday trading crude, living on the west coast of North America. I tell you, I was looking at those places in Southern Illinois again. Oh, there's this one place. It's like sitting on 4 acres, and they've got like 5,000 square foot warehouse that we could turn into just an absolute killer trading sort of like it would be the ultimate like I don't even know how to describe it. Like 5,000 square foot warehouse just all dedicated to just trading and nothing else. I mean, you could use your imagination. It'd be fucking awesome. Anyway, it's just sitting there and it's not moving on the market. I actually think that the whole housing story, that's yesterday's news. Actually, and it's interesting here in China, they're so desperate now. Bank of Canada is now actually cutting interest rates dramatically. I mean, you don't often see that these central banksters cut interest rates by like 0.5% in one go. That's very rare. So why on earth are they doing this? And if anything, this is getting back to like Alan Greenspan, where I get the feeling that these central banksters actually consider themselves relatively important in society. and they've almost like elevated themselves to kind of like some sort of rock star status or something like this. Where Carney, the Bank of Canada governor, and then he turned into the Bank of England governor, and now he's a World Economic Forum puppet. He's, I think, like one of the principles behind this. We're going to encourage the humans to borrow $100 trillion at interest to build out this, battery powered car world that we're supposed to live in. And I think the whole argument's like literally falling apart. Um, so anyway, I guess just the simple point is that I listened to Mr. Trump waiting for him to start acting like Joe Biden. I just saw Joe Rogan there. I was about to call him Joe Rogan. Joe Biden, I think that's his name, Joe Biden, right? He didn't uh, I wouldn't say it was absolutely flawless. There were a couple times, and he says he likes to weave stories, and it takes him a while to weave in different things, and eventually he comes back to the original topic and blah 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 blah. But I will say he did 3 hours conversation with Mr. Rogan here, 3 hours, and he literally didn't miss a beat. I say I was pretty impressed. I thought I was the only clown who could talk for 3 hours without even coming up for air. Nope. And that was one thing I watched, sort of an after party kind of thing that Mr. Rogan did, and he's got all his minions, of course, and they're all just yes men. Oh yes, Joe, whatever you say, you're the best. You're the best. Blah blah blah. But anyway, they sat and they talked about the interview, and they talked actually pretty glowingly. And one of the things that I heard, of course, Don here, I think if he is elected, man, turn those fucking spigots on. I think oil prices are going to collapse. I think the whole, like a place like China, where it actually, uh, um, it, even though our dear leader, I mean, he's a total idiot, and fucking, I can't wait till the guy's gone. And he plays the politic game because he knows full well that a huge portion of this country's annual revenues, and of course the money to actually support all his socialist communist government ridiculous spending, it comes from the oil patch. So if Donnie comes along here and he knocks the oil price down, China is screwed. And the thing is that's exactly what's supposed to happen in our respective greed cycles. And I actually tried to explain this to some idiots on social media, talking, now you've got like guys who are in the Canadian real estate industry since like 2011. This one guy, and he's all handsome and he looks the part. And I'm sure the chicks throw their fucking panties at him anytime he goes to the bar and all that kind of stuff. So he's the man. But he's sitting there talking. He's been involved in the Canadian real estate industry since 2011, and he's an expert. And I even posted right on his video, it's laughable that the only data that you're using to actually analyze this industry goes back to the year 2000, when you don't even understand that China itself, as a commodity proxy, was in a friendly cycle that lasts about 20 years. I mean, any student of mine knows 17 and a half year fear greed cycles, and we are now very comfortably in a greed cycle, which is very anti-commodity. And of course, look at the commodity countries around the world. They're all dying 1,000 deaths. I warned all of you, and any students of mine know right, explicitly that this is a very bad time to be even considering investing in commodity type countries. And I mean, is anybody going to go and invest in Russia right now? I mean, what a shit show. And nobody talks about Australia anymore. We think that the damn island just sunk into the Pacific and disappeared. I don't hear anybody talking about Australia anymore. Well, it's interesting to see that sort of to backstop this, And I love when I see this kind of stuff because I think I fancy myself as fairly intelligent, but when I start to hear guys like Mr. Hendry start to make the argument, not this idiot, but where's Hugh, our buddy Hugh? And I mean, these assholes over in China, they're still spitting out coal fire, plants that dwarf the amount of emissions that all of these other countries combined do. I mean, nothing's changing here, right? And I love this person's tweet, right? Pretty dumb to think Canadians and carbon tax will do anything other than make Canadians poorer, and that's exactly what's happening. It's just pathetic. But anyway, back to my original point here. Where's Mr. Hendry? Mr. Hendry's been going on for a while here. And, I mean, if you don't want to listen to Brian, listen to a smart guy like you. Basically the same argument. His argument is just simply that, the stupidity of that Chinese bubble, it's over. And I did find it interesting. We actually, interestingly enough, coming out of the summer, I entertained the idea of Alibaba trade, but through call options, and we did a bull call spread, and the position moved up substantially through the latter part of the summer and the beginning part of the fall. That we sold 2/3 of it, got like a 20-30% return after everything's all said and done, and we still have a free position on going forward into like 2026. So, if the world equity market goes crazy and China does all of a sudden, outperform and Alibaba is all the rage, blah, 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 then great. We've got the free car on there. We'll see what happens. But we've already made our money on the Alibaba trade. I'm not even concerned about it anymore. But it is fascinating to see just recently the data coming out of China is just awful. And, in a weird sort of way, I'm not quite sure why, but in a weird sort of way, they actually produce a lot of their economic data late on in the week or even on the weekends. And I think this actually came out like on Saturday. Why the hell would they put an economic data out on Saturday? I know, because if the data is horrific, they don't want the market to collapse on the release of the data. So at least there's a few days for all these Winnie the Pooh minions to go around going, now you don't sell. If you sell, off to the concentration camp you go. So you better not sell. But my business is collapsing. Well, collapsing business, tofu collapsing apartment building, or concentration camp. It's your choice. Anyway, that's probably a little bit of political commentary we didn't need there. Anyway, the point of the matter here is the profits by Chinese industrial firms dropped by 3.5% year over year. Oh, that's not a good sign. Wait a minute. I thought these companies in this economy were supposed to be growing. Yeah, where the fuck is Jack Ma, eh? Jesus. And what I think is a little bit more disturbing about all of this is you don't hear anybody talk about Jack Ma anymore. I mean, if this was a world of humans and we actually, were concerned about each other's welfare, I mean, everybody would be up in arms. Where is Jack Ma? How is he doing? You don't hear anything about that. It's just so sad. Yeah. Anyway, so a lot of the Chinese economy, and they're even saying here, right, economy due to persistent weak demand. There never was an internal consumer-based economy built there. It's all a fraud. Deflationary risk, tofu dregs. Fucking what a scam job that real estate industry was. And of course, then the property downturn. So it is interesting to see that the whole Chinese nonsense garbage bubble here, it just continues to deflate. And as I said there a few minutes ago, Hughes actually, he did quite a rant here about how you might even look to see this whole Chinese nonsense just completely collapse. I mean, we talked about the Japanese yen. I remember specifically on one of these weekend shows, somebody asked me specifically, and it'd be interesting to see whether that person even bothers to listen to me anymore. Because ironically enough, actually, I think I gave a fairly accurate summary of what I thought was going to happen there with the Japanese yen. Remember the Japanese yen, the central bank over there in Japan threatened to start actually raising interest rates, and the whole fucking world had a conniption fit. That was this whole rally, eh? And I think you could actually just simply make the argument, and this, of course, is a key core concept in our education program. I think you can make a pretty realistic, pretty simple argument that, if anything, what we needed to do is just clean up the oversold condition. I remember back in the end of I think it was the middle of the summer, somebody had asked about this. And what I see here, I don't know whether that's accurate or not, but it does kind of look like a falling wedge, which technically actually is bullish. We had the dead cat bounce to the 50% level, and now it's continuing its march down. And if anything, now with M's here on the price chart, we can actually start drawing some downside objectives. And I don't see any reason for this to change. And the way that the Asians have dealt with their local economy is just being crap, because really there is no domestic economy over there. There's they're just devaluing their currency. I mean, what direction is this thing heading? I don't see any reason to expect any change to this. And I remember in the summer we were going through that counter trend rally, and if anything, this is a really good example. I think of like things like market structure, big fat M's, and actually I think this big fat M, huge fat M, bang bang bang, it actually painted a downside target here. So ironically enough, hitting that 2.618, that was a bit of a catalyst that, okay, probably the selling has hit some sort of crescendo. And you get that big dead cat bounce out of there. Everybody in the market's short. And of course, they're caught going the wrong direction. And what does the market do? It flushes them out. I would actually make the argument that to break this bearish structure, you really needed to see the market close above this level here. I guess we had made a reference, we wanted to see the market close above this dotted line here. Sort of break the previous bearish structure, right? I don't think it did that. So then new M's coming in here, painting downside objectives. I often do like to sort of ask the market, is it actually respecting these levels as we work our way down? Might be interesting changes to an actual candle chart. You might see quite a bit of volatility around this 2.618. It sure looks to me like we got to go to this 4669 here. And probably also too, which has been interesting, is I bet the sign that whatever this dead cat bounce was exhausting itself. My hunch is this probably moved to divergence up here, and then the M following the divergence signal was your signal if you wanted to get short to get back on the short side. And you probably make the argument 38.2, 50%. So you can see we're already hit Mountain Man. Brian's favorite fib. I don't see any reason why we can't come down here. Interesting how the midpoint of that reload zone just so happens to be good old 4.669. So yeah, we'll see what we do coming down into this level. And actually, this will be a really interesting tell here. Do we actually W out? So this would be an interesting market to keep an eye on here going forward. I might even just leave that on the screen. Having said that, though, that Chinese data, basically saying that, there is no domestic economy. China was entirely sort of predicated on export growth. And this is where I really wanted to drive home the Mr. Hendry comment. His comment, simply put here, is China cannot export its way out of economic trouble going forward. There was the opportunity for this when China was dramatically underdeveloped, like 20 years ago now, but that's not the case anymore, right? And you might even make the argument that Chinese workers are demanding relatively similar wages to Western people. Their cost of living is starting to rise quite dramatically, and it's biting into sort of the profit margins. And a lot of companies are actually just picking up and leaving China and going elsewhere. So anyway, um, I guess just the point that I would make is in this kind of world, country like China, Canada, a supplier of raw materials. China was kind of hoping that we would have China as a big new demander of goods and services. Well, specifically goods, I guess, things like raw materials, oil, base metals, all that kind of fun stuff. And I don't think that that's realistic going forward. And now with the election coming up here, I think you could make the argument that this sort of the continuation of this fluffy, stupid, idiot sort of bubble story of the world that we live in, it requires higher and higher and higher prices. And I think Mr. Trump has specifically said that the very first thing that I'm going to do when I get into office is I'm going to turn those goddamn spigots on in North Dakota. And you think you've seen oil hit the market? And he was even in the interview, he even talked about there is a field in Alaska that he almost had brought online, but Biden killed it immediately as soon as he got into office. And this one field in Alaska, I think it's called Anwar or something like that. It's supposed to have as much oil in it as all of Saudi Arabia. Dope. That has nothing to do with North Dakota or South Dakota or Cotter, Dakota over there. See you, Cotter. I think he's in one of the Dakotas. This is up in Alaska, and I mean that's it's shocking how much oil there is actually out there in the world. And of course, we've always made the argument. It's so simple. What's the cure for high prices? High prices. And the key here, though, is we had to somehow get somebody who's actually in some sort of political office of influence to actually be thinking about this from the consumer's perspective, from Joe Sixpack's perspective. I suppose in my country, Jugdish Sixpack. I think that's what I have to change my name to now. It's not China anymore. It's Indica. Hey, Indica. Well, yeah, actually, that might make sense. Isn't that interesting? I never thought of that before. Anyway, so the one thing I do like about Donnie is he does seem to look at this from sort of like layman's perspective. I suppose maybe you call it populism. I don't know. I'm just so sick and tired of this world of these people living in these ivory towers dictating to us what they think is good for the public. And I can absolutely tell you, higher prices is not good for the public. It doesn't make for a good operating society. Lower prices, low inflation, low cost of living. That's how economies prosper. The problem, of course, is that we in the Western world are living way, way beyond our means. And the only way that they can continue this bullshit, nonsense, garbage crap is to continually justify the hyperinflation of the money supply. Of course, if Donnie comes in and he knocks the shit out of commodity prices, then that will be deflationary, not inflationary. And that's going to completely derail all the globalists' plans. Could also see too, and it'll be interesting development. I do get the impression that my hunch is if Donnie does win here, then we probably find that a lot of these manufactured wars around the world all of a sudden just come to a grinding halt. But anyway, we'll see how that goes. No way to comment on that. Be interesting to see what, from what I understand, when you listen to Donnie, Mr. Putin doesn't really have much regard for Mr. Biden, but I think he does have a little bit more respect for Mr. Trump. So anyway, we'll see how that goes. So it's a huge, huge political event coming up here. What I'm kind of worried about, what I think is kind of happening, So I think that the broader economy is sort of like, nah, it's not really like it's booming, but it's not really like it's busting either. It's just sort of it's there. And if anything, we've talked lots about the interest rate cycle. We are now into a part of the interest rate cycle. I don't think you're going to see it too much out of the United States because I think the United States economy is relatively strong. It's I think you're definitely going to see it out of these commodity countries. And if Donnie comes in and he knocks commodity prices down, that's going to absolutely destroy a place like China. I mean, it is in big trouble. And what bothers me is that the people here in China, they don't even see it themselves. They don't realize how absolutely backwards the fundamentals of this country are. And the only thing that's really supporting this society is a relatively high oil price. And actually, a lot of our sort of national revenue is coming out of Alberta and the oil patch. If that disappears, I don't and I what I do, and I'm constantly scratching my head, is I like average and really this isn't an efficient use of our time. So actually, you know what? I think we'll just leave it at that. You all know my thoughts about and for whatever it's worth, I even made in the commentary here. If you're actually looking for a trade, I actually like the idea of shorting China down here. I think there's actually a trade developing on the exchange traded fund down in New York, priced in U.S. dollars. Don't trade anything priced in Chinese dollars here. You're just asking for trouble. But shorting the Chinese market through the U.S. through the U.S. ETF. It's called EWC, if I'm not mistaken. That's this right here, right? And I've been talking about this with the site. And if anything, this is scary because this is China. This is the Chinese stock market here in U.S. dollar terms. I mean, it's basically done nothing here since basically September, right? There's September 19th right there, 20th. So the market's basically done nothing. But if you come up to China here, China, Chindia, or whatever, Indica, you'd actually think that there's some sort of rip roaring, crazy ass bull market going on here. Well, no, that's not the case. Because if you actually look at the currency is getting absolutely destroyed. And again, this is race to the bottom. All of these international countries, the only economy that's really growing right now is the USA. And it's a race to the bottom to try and export your way into the US market. But you tell me, M's and W's, does that look like a bullish chart? Is that a good idea to go and buy an asset that looks like that? Hint, 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 stay the fuck away. And anybody who's a student of mine, hint, 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 this will be a question on the final exam. Should I go and buy China right now? I don't think so. Be careful. This has got trouble written all over it. And of course, what's interesting is our local financial institutions for the longest time. The world was like all in love with them. Oh, the Canadian banks are so wonderful. They're the model for, corporate behavior around the. Oh boy, have you seen these Canadian banks lately? And one of them's literally been just actually convicted. I think, settlement through the U.S. Justice Department of actually outright fraud and actually outright breaking the law. I mean, it's stunning. And this is what often happens when these darn markets go parabolic like this, and people actually start buying into the bullshit about how wonderful they are, and then of course they start writing checks that their balance sheet really can't cover. I thought I had this stock chart around here somewhere. There it is. Look at this thing. And, we've talked about this lots. In fact, I used to go into the bank myself because it was fun and just tease them about what a piece of shit their stock was and how it was the most heavily shorted bank stock in the world. And then the bank manager would go, Oh, well, thank you very much for shorting our stock. So that gives me the opportunity to buy it at cheaper prices. All right. Well, how cheap is cheap? I get the distinct impression. Usually, and actually, this is a really good little technical lesson for you here. This is what's called gap and go. Interesting how on the weekly chart there was no price gap. Well, actually, I guess you could say there was a little bit of a price gap. But I've often talked to you guys about girls and houseplants about how this is markets never really move in like one direction, one way. Usually it's sort of like stair stepping, zigzag pattern, all that kind of talk. And I think that's what's happening here. So interesting how we slammed right down into 4669s and then we consolidated. And I got this sneaky suspicion this is an AB equals CD, which means, and this is actually how the Canadian market will break apart. It will be because these financial institutions, and I even posted on some guy's social media page yesterday. So, who in the Canadian financial services industry is going to be the Bear Stearns, the Lehman Brothers, the AIGs? It's coming. It's coming 100 miles an hour. And the funny thing is the way that these banks have set themselves up, 20, 30 years ago, the Canadian banks are the envy of the world. And, a big bull market. And of course, these idiots, they went and got involved in the fucking drug trafficking trade. I mean, what the hell are banks doing? Getting involved in fucking drug peddling. Jesus. And it's just purely a function of greed, eh? Where we got to increase the profit margin, we got to increase the dividend. All right, well, okay, we got to figure out how can we get that earnings number up for the earnings release, and blah 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 blah. And sure enough, they end up doing things that just absolutely not good banking practices. So the same thing I said about this AB equals CD. I think you see a bigger one, A, B, C, D. And this kind of looks like that Canadian dollar chart. Very similar. So I have a funny feeling that international people are actually selling off these Canadian assets. And as I said there a moment ago, I really like the idea. I think I'm seriously look at it. We got 7 confirmed bearish momentum divergences. 7. This is a daily price chart. You see where the 50% rule is just off of this just recent range. I mean, this isn't really huge. What we should be doing is a 52-week 50% level. So where is that? That is, wow, all the way back here. Oh my goodness. So there is 1 year. And interesting, this is such a good analogy of sort of the last year of the wokeness, last year of Joe Biden's presidency. I think he was the hallmark of sort of that politically left leaning sort of over the top socialism. He always talked about how he was the kid of an iron worker or whatever from Delaware, blah blah blah. I might even argue that this was the end of that move. So a whole shitload of bear divs. I suppose the one thing that I'm missing here is, can I please get some sort of market structure? And you see where the 50% rule is. I mean, what I simply teach you guys, and I'd love to hear that you guys are actually learning this. I think a lot of people that I teach, they have been learning this, but we don't really want to justify a trade unless we can actually realistically see a good 2-to-1 risk reward. Look at that. This is just a 52-week 50% level. This isn't overthinking. And if this trade really does fall apart, well, hello. I don't know whether you can see this. There's a big hole on this price chart down there. What are we supposed to think if we ever see these big holes on the price chart? What's the statistical odds? Where's that Sharktoshi guy? What's the statistical odds that that hole gets filled in? All right, well, if you don't like that hole, how about this hole? I mean, these things, you could drive a truck through these goddamn gaps. They're huge. So, interesting. Canada was a buy. Ain't a buy anymore. And I do like using these proxies because at least these proxies are based in a currency that isn't based on bullshit. What's so sad for the Canadian public is they just don't realize what this guy has done to our currency. And unfortunately, the currency will get destroyed in the marketplace. And then after the fact, people go, oh, yeah, I guess it was a bubble. Oh, well, now what are we going to do? I mean, and the fucker will be long gone. Politician. I don't understand why this happens in our society, but after the fact, won't be able to hunt this guy down and tie him up and burn him at the stake for the way that he's completely destroyed our society. It will just be sort of like, oh, yeah, just don't mention his name ever again. And we have to move on. The banksters have completed the great reset. They've completely destroyed the purchasing power of the currency. Local Canadians are absolutely destroyed. But the banksters, business as usual. These cocksuckers, if they actually do get into any trouble, they're just going to have some big bailout handed to them. And it's just going to be business as usual, blah, blah, blah. It is interesting, though. I have heard a number of people actually say you should actually start to expect to see bank runs on these Canadian banks. It should happen. It's what happened, like I said. Who is going to be China does AIG? Who is going to be China does Lehman Brothers? Who is going to be China does Bear Stearns? It's coming, folks. Anyway, well, that was a big waste of an hour. Sorry, everyone. Hey, Eddie says 91.4. There you go. Okay, so there were a couple questions, and I really should sort of focus in on that. As I said, with the political event coming up here, I don't think anybody should make any really big decisions in the market coming up to this event. And, basically in line with Bitcoin, we've been joking about how basically the market was kind of telegraphing that we were going to come to some sort of focal point here. And what a big surprise right ahead of this election. Terrible trade location. If anything, it's actually a pretty good trade location if you want to try and hunt short setups up top here, looking to lock in some sales following the event. Pretty difficult to really pinpoint anything here ahead of the event, because what I actually see, and you can see this, I've drawn this out specifically for this, is it does look to me like we've got A, B, C, D pattern working, which to me says that they want to take this thing up into a serious test of these highs. Does it happen into the election? Could be. Does it happen shortly after the election on some sort of blow off top? Could be. And keep in mind that, these AB equals CD harmonics, and I saw Halfed over there on YouTube. Nice to see you, sir. He is one of our harmonicans and a regular participant in a harmonics room. It's always great to hang out with the harmonicans and check in with them. Level 3ers just did their harmonics manual and I think module, and I think I actually lost a couple students to the harmonicans, which sometimes happens because people are like, damn, this Steven guy, he's a badass. Okay, Brian, options. Okay, fine, whatever. I'm going to go hang out with Steven for a while. Anyway, in fact, actually, we had our first introduction to options module in our level 3 program, and the class was a nice light 4 hours. Poor students. But as I tell all of them, I don't stop talking until I feel as though everything that needs to be addressed is addressed. And we do have one gentleman who does like to ask questions this particular term. So I have a feeling that quite a few of our classes are going to be very lengthy. But hey, that's what you signed up for. That's what you paid me for. So why on earth would I shortchange you? So anyway, back to our story. So the point here is that this is actually technically a harmonic pattern. It's called an AB equals CD. And you often see, I'll even put right on these charts, I guess, did that get overshadowed? Usually I put right on the chart, AB equals CD objective, right on these, boom, 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 boom. You often see them on my charts. Let's go like that and like that. So, oh yeah, that's probably why I got rid of it, because it was overlapping. There we go. So the issue here, though, is an AB equals CD. It can go symmetric 1.0, which would be a test of the old highs. Notice, look at that. It's almost exactly right at that level. Can go all the way up to 1.272. And in some instances, it can go all the way up to 1.618. And I've told all of you, and I don't know whether, actually it'd be interesting to get your feedback. Let's see if you remember. If we do actually blast all the way up to this 1.618, what does this 1.618 represent? The answer is an absolute no-brainer short trade location up there. Very rarely do you ever see the market hit that 1.618 and continue on. Usually that turns out to be a hell of a short, in this case, bearish AB equals CD, a hell of a short trade location. So we're coming into some sort of crescendo here. And what a big surprise. It's right into this big fundamental event. And I think what's happening, and this is just, this is just my opinion, 35 years in this silly business. I think what's happening here is there's an old adage in the market. And actually, I'd be interested to see whether you guys can answer this question. I didn't even give you an opportunity to answer this. So I'm going to give you an opportunity to answer this. Let's see if anybody on YouTube can get this. If you want to take the market down, first you do what? You want to take the market down, first you do what? Hello, Crypto Not. Good to see you. DDBB, rest is important, buddy. Yeah, you're telling me. There you go. Nice Zong. Actually, I haven't seen that name in quite a while. Yeah, first you got to take it up. You're the only one who got it. It's remarkable how I do these. Oh, actually, Glass Insights, you got it right too, so you weren't alone. And we have Pixel 6 Pro. Hello, Pixel 6 Pro. Is that what your mother named you? Jeez, she's cruel. Anyway, good answer, Zoc. Nobody else got it. So there you go. What the hell is that? Eddie's waving around. What is that? Is that supposed to be a vodka? No, Eddie's posting memes, and I have not got a clue what the hell he's talking about here. Anyway, the rest of you 50 people watching this damn video, please. Oh, it's a gold-plated steak. Is that what that is? All right, cool. Nice. First, you take the market up. I mean, that's the irony of this stupid game. So I get the distinct, especially when I see things like, what was the name of the damn 7 stocks again, Chris? I always forget. It's like the Magnificent 7 or something like that. I don't know. Chris probably not. There he is. So I even wrote in here that something's a little bit suspicious about all this. I don't like how, this is the crypto page. We can pop on over to stock page, I suppose now. I don't like how, just over here, the semiconductors, ironically enough, this actually is a little bit of a dangerous pattern up here. This big back and forth, especially guys like Hafed. Hafed, do you see a harmonic here? It gets a little scary when the dead cat bounce hits. Oh yeah, look at that. So who can tell me what harmonic pattern that is? And the most important number here on this one is this number right here, this middle one, this X to A to B. When you see a number this close to 61.8, all of you should go, oh, crap, that's a fill in the blank. So I don't know whether any of you can remember that. What does that say? That says 64. I don't know whether that's close enough or not. Actually, I suppose we go down here. So when I see this, and this should be 78.6 right in there, right? Speaking about harmonics, when I see this pattern, boom, 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 and if we show any signs of failure around this 78.6, uh-oh, spaghettios. My opinion doesn't matter. There is a big AB equals CD. All right, cool. Mag 7. There you go. Thank you, Cotter. 100K. Yeah, but I think that's down the road first. I think we got to do some backfilling first. Yeah, so there's a half it, and if half it gives it the good housekeeping seal of approval, we probably should pay attention. Also, too, notice look how it's above value here. It looks like there's a price gap on this, and this is a big ETF, right? Huge. So that gap probably needs to be filled in. But notice how that gap would be filled in right into that sort of, that 78.6 level there. That's not a good sign, especially when you zoom out on something like this, because look how far this darn thing has come. Now, if we go on like a weekly price chart, I mean, is that not the definition of something going parabolic? That sure looks to me like that thing's gone parabolic. And I guess the point here, guys, is I'm thinking more like this, where you see that, from actual peak, and there's the peak there, right, in December, and the actual trough is in October. I could actually see a scenario like that, where, we got to spend a while just cleaning this up. That would not surprise me at all. Really, I would make the argument that these kind of stocks are very much in bed with the Democrat Party. I remember tech stocks did, extremely well through the dot-com boom days. And then, and you probably even see it here, then George Bush Jr. Came into office, and you tell me, right? George Bush Jr., a Republican, very anti-tech stock, very anti that, that sort of tech stocks are going to be our future, very anti Bill Gates and all those jerks. And you can see there is November 2000 even. And, what did the tech sector do? This because this was the election. I might make the argument, of course, we talk about cycle pivots in our education program, and I was a broker through this. I remember specifically Q3 of 2000 was sort of the okay, enough of this bullshit about this, at the time, in 1999, people couldn't even think about what the new century was going to look like. It was just completely beyond their sort of reckoning. And not a big surprise. Basically, look at that, right into sort of the first, second quarter of 2000. This thing goes and M's out, and right. And then, of course, Clinton getting blowjobs in the White House. And it was the end of an era. And you can see what this particular thing had to do for pretty much the entire period of George Bush Jr.'s first term in office. So there was the end of his first term. And of course, made up phony baloney wars and all that kind of stuff. What's also interesting too is we have noticed that maybe it helps China. I don't know. I don't think it will, but well, anyway, I don't want to open up the China can of worms again. The point here is you can see that, if these things have to top out and they have to take a few years to calm down, come down to earth, that's actually very normal. So, the question, I guess, would be, could we see a harmonic up in here somewhere? I don't know. I don't think so. Just simply put, be curious just to go boom, boom. Oh, yep. There's 4669. Look at that. Was that actually the bottom? No, not quite. That would have been a pretty good reference level there, right? Look how we acted at 2.618. It became really volatile in there. So I do like the idea that the tech stocks probably need to take some time off. Interesting. 2.618. I love it when you can get these overlapping harmonic, or excuse me, Fagendons as levels. That is a hell of a confluence level there. Um, if we just look at where we are here, I mean, gee whiz, if this thing tops out, it's got a long way to. I mean, there's just trendline support there, right? All the way. And look at this. Is this? There's no value here. God, I've shown you charts like this about Bitcoin in years gone by. I remember distinctly in 2000. I guess it was 2014 when we had that huge run up to like $1,000 on Bitcoin. The profile looked exactly like this. And Bitcoin had to work its way back down to like $150 a barrel, which was the top of that, or a barrel, $150 a coin. And basically it just came back, revisited value, and then started its march back higher. So, I mean, I look at a chart like this, it's very, very difficult for me to justify buying that. I can't. I just can't even think about it. And unfortunately, this is the way that most of the NASDAQ looks, right? Most of these, this is the semiconductors, the ultimate leading indicator of our society. And I'd even make the argument that this is a nice little fractal that's developing here. I think that it happens through the actual election event. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's still a little bit more back and forth. And I also wouldn't be surprised that this sort of tumult all carries on right through to the actual inauguration. I think this is going to be a really wonky few months ahead of us, folks. So be prepared. Interesting. We had econs that came out over the weekend, and I've been talking, or not over the weekend, last Friday, that actually showed that, consumer inflation expectations are coming off dramatically. And I've often talked about this Newmont because this is my expectation for this coming period. And in a weird sort of way, I think it's actually playing out. So I did like the idea that the market was going to bounce back up into things like reload zones, then come right back down and test the lows. And then we were going to put in a bottom, probably maybe the end of next year, beginning of 2026. And then the inflation's going to come roaring back like crazy. I wouldn't be surprised if there's like financial crisis and all that kind of crap. I mean, what's supposed to happen at the end of 2025, beginning in 2026 for Bitcoin, right? I mean, that's the top of our cycle. So I don't know. There might be this insane blow off top here in Bitcoin. I don't know. I suppose if gold does this, Bitcoin probably will too. But I did like the idea that we were going through the dead cat bounce phase where we would have to bounce back up to things like reload short zones and then dip all the way back down as we go through a period of deflation, but it won't be deflation. It'll be disinflation because these cocksucker banksters have to make absolutely damn sure we never deflate, because then that cuts into their profit margins and they go bankrupt because they're so over leveraged. There has to be inflation always. So there has to be a premium that you have to pay when you go to the bank to borrow money. That's the only way they can survive. And they're so massively overly leveraged. Of course, we've talked lots about this Canadian banks bullshit, that they have to show profits. If they don't, they could go bankrupt like that. It's quite shocking how we don't need to go back down the Canadian bank fucking con job conversation again. Anyway, so the point here is interesting. I was quite surprised on Friday when I saw that, oh, look at that. So Newmont did start its rally up exactly as expected. And then all of a sudden something happened and wow, it just got absolutely bitch slapped here. Is this the beginning of the process of that correction to bring the market back down to these low levels? As I had shown you on that chart, I like the idea of getting uber bullish of gold and silver and all that kind of stuff. when we get back down into this level here. So if anything, especially you crypto kids and all, those kind of people, I think you can actually use the gold business as sort of your pivot of where I would not be surprised to see Bitcoin do something very similar along these lines. As our classic inflation proxy, these things are getting their lunch handed to them right now. And it kind of makes sense because the gold and silver market did run up quite a bit. Gold and silver will only rally and only move up when the economy is expanding and booming along. And of course, there's lots of inflationary pressure. And as I said there a few minutes ago, our ultimate leading indicator in the stock market, you can't have assets just indefinitely just keep going up. It's the law of Toyland. What goes up must come down, right? I mean, at some point, there has to be correctionary phases. Now, it might not be steep like this. It might just be something as simple as this period. It could very easily be just something that looks like this. But at the same time, too, that's not growthy. That is contractionary. This is basically what I'm thinking is going to happen here going forward. Or it could look something like this, where we just, basically go sideways. Don't necessarily crap out, but there is no insane hyperinflationary growth that sort of justifies the never ending rise in things like gold price. If we look at the gold chart, I think it makes sense. Just keep it simple, stupid. Don't overthink this. Hopefully everybody can see that this is a fairly straightforward price pattern that I happen to teach in our education program that could have had you long gold from a pretty respectable level. But should you be coming in on the buy side here on gold at this? Maybe let's just let everybody absorb this image for a moment, and can I get an answer from the community? I don't know, the audience, whatever the fuck we're supposed to call you guys and girls and houseplants. Do you come in on the buy side when an asset is here? Hint, hint, hint. What did we say? Something about A, B, C, D's? Do you want to come in and be a buyer of this asset right here? I think this is about 3 or 4 times I've asked this question. Can somebody please help me here? Thank you, Mr. Insights. At least somebody's answering. Yeah, exactly. Constantine. You don't sell half at profit objectives, you buy more. Who are the idiots that said that? I swear, the one thing that absolutely goes absolutely out the window and it drives you crazy is when we get into rip roaring bull markets, risk management just goes fucking right out the window. It's like people don't even think that bad things can happen. So, I mean, no offense, but this chart speaks for itself. Ironically enough, I don't need to say anything more. All right, well said, DMAC. So the problem here is does that look like that's at the bottom of a market? Does that look like that's the bottom of a move? I don't think so. Now, I mean, as I had said earlier, you could very easily have an absolute face rip move up to 1.618. But, and actually, this would be a really good question for all of you. Who would be best to know the future of a commodities price? There's one particular group, and also it's perfectly prevalent and applicable in the Bitcoin space. So you can use the exact same logic here. But are there any market participants that these people would be the absolute best people to know what the future of your commodity price ought to be? Anybody? This is a really valuable lesson. And, if you fancy yourself a long-term market participant, you've got to learn this. Well, let's be a little more specific. What do you mean by insiders? Anyone? Mr. Insights? If somebody was to ask you on the street, who would be best to listen to if I was going to want to listen to anybody in a particular commodity? How about the companies that are in the commodity space? Wouldn't they be the best people to listen to? I think so. Isn't that what this is? Is somebody inside the industry, Newmont Mining, biggest gold company in the world, I guess that is the definition of somebody who's in the space, is violently gapping lower because of, in this case, I mean, it's quite remarkable to listen to all these countries around the world trying to screw over these gold companies, try and steal their mines from them. How about another one? American Barrick, ABX. Actually, I think they call themselves, I think the symbol they have for themselves now in the States is gold. Which is, yeah, there you go, Barrick. It used to be called American Barrick. Now they just call it Barrick Gold Corporation. I don't know. Let's take a look at momentum. Do you see momentum divergence here? Making higher highs in price, but momentum's not going the right direction. How about RSI? Julian and his RSIs. Geez, this thing looks like it topped out way over here. Look at Willie was stupid over here. So you could make the argument Barrick was actually topping out here. So all of this move here recently, since August, is all bullshit. Oh boy. That looks dangerous. And then another one that I like to follow, Agnico Eagle. And I think of good old Ronnie Backman. Agnico Eagle, I thought I remember. Oh, AEM, I think it is. Agnico Eagle Mines. Yeah, there it is. Another big gold stock. This guy hasn't broken down yet, but I was reading that the market participants are getting a little bit concerned that this is a bit nosebleedy and not sustainable over time. And frankly speaking, I kind of have to agree with them. That looks like that's near the end of the move, not the beginning. And what did the momentum indicators look like? Interesting how we've gone to new highs here, but this has not gone to new highs. Nah, it's not as bad. I mean, Ron Backman, he was a really smart guy. He always loved him, Agnico Eagle. So anyway, it looks like he's relatively okay. And I suppose we have interesting how we're just brushing up against old all-time highs and the market can't break through the top there. That's interesting. No. So it's awful tough to come in on the buy side on gold right there. And kind of along the same lines, very, very difficult for me to think about coming in on the buy side there. And if we look at some of these other stock indexes, as I had pointed out, the Canadian stock market looks like an absolute unequivocal short here. Absolutely love the idea. I think I have to go and buy a put spread here. Something like I'd buy the probably buy like the 32 and a halves or 32.8, I should say. Where is 38.2? There it is. Yeah. So I'd probably want to buy like the 38 put and then maybe write like the 35 put or 30, 30, maybe buy the 38, write the 35. If I could get that spread for less than, I don't know, 40, 50 cents, get 10x on your money. If we head back down to that 50% rule, that's probably some good money. Fuck, Jesus. Well, that time went by quick. Oh, well, excuse my French. Okay, let's head on over and look at the questions because that's what I should be doing here. All right, let's see what we got here. Hey, at Brian Beamish, could you discuss dent, spell, and storage in the chicken show? All right. And second question, hi Brian, I'm trying to find TD Tom DeMark indicator, but I don't seem to find it. I'm on the plus subscription on TradingView. This one's a little tricky. In fact, we even created a script. Sharktoshi, if you're around, he's actually got like a document of scripts that he created. We have to create a Tom DeMark indicator because Mr. Tom DeMark went on TradingView and he got all upset at people who were, I think, basically just using his name. And you can't fault the guy, right? If I had called the Brian Beamish indicator, which I probably should have named Willie, then that way people wouldn't blatantly copy it. But anyway, I should call it little old Beamish risk management strategy. And then that way, stupid idiots that don't know what they're doing in the trading world don't steal your concepts and completely bastardize the terms. But anyway, so I don't blame Mr. DeMark. He basically went on TradingView and said, excuse me, can you please remove those? Having said that, it's not actually very difficult to build the script. It's incredibly simple. All it is in simplest terms, how many, in fact, maybe you can even work on building a script, but the script should just simply ask how many days in a row has price been higher than the price it was 4 bars previous. And I find, you should be able to build a script. I do have scripts on my system, and I think what happened was if you save the script, you're able to keep it, but if you don't have it on your script, then it disappears. There is the script. I don't even think it shows though the actual script itself. So, but it ironically enough, the actual script itself, it's not that complicated. It's actually extremely simple. And I do remember that I actually built the script, but anybody who's half decent at scripting with PineScript, and maybe the TRI site, let's see if maybe we can build like an internal, we'll call it the TRI bracket lowercase td or something so he doesn't like get offended indicator. But it's not that complicated. It's actually extremely simple. And the way that I use it, I just simply hunt for situations where 8 and 9 bars in a row, you see that condition. And this particular script will actually even put right on top of the price that actually it's happening. I don't know whether I can get it on this particular chart. Oh, should be there. Of course, can't see it. This always happens with scripts. You want to show somebody and you can't see it at all. Anyway, should be able to see it on here. I'm not quite sure why that's not showing up, but it might be, I don't know. That's a good question. I know I was seeing it on my futures charts there through the week, so maybe it's over here. Oh, maybe this is gone too. Oh, there you go. So you can see 8s and 9s. I'd start looking for some sort of consolidation. And really all it is, 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. So that bar is obviously higher than that. And then this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that bar is higher than that one. So 1, 2, 3, 4. That bar is obviously higher than that one. 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, that bar is higher than that one. Right. And you'd have to go probably back, 8 or 9, right? So if there's 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So at this point, right, and if you look back, this bar here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nope, that is not higher than that. So you start your count there. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. As soon as the 8th bar pops up, a little number pops up, 9s and 8s and 9s. That's what I look for to try and tell me, okay, it looks like this trend's getting pretty damn old. The irony of it all is you can see here on this chart, just because you do get that 8 and 9, that doesn't necessarily mean that that is an outright short and no brainer short. As you can see, that didn't quite work there. But, that's the mechanics of the indicator. It's incredibly simple. I mean, that's the irony of it all. Very, very simple stuff. So hopefully, at the very least, I just walked you through how the indicator works. And as I said, I'm looking for 8s and 9s. I know Julian, for instance, he starts to look for like 7s. So for some reason, he likes hunting 7s. Anyway, 6 to 1, half dozen the other. It's not really my indicator. It's not something that I would use on a daily basis. I do like it to sort of add to the technical picture. And I think you could be able to create a script on your own doing that. That's not that difficult. Just don't name it Tom DeMark because he'll probably get pissed off. So there's that's about the best I can speak to this. But I would even say just ask around the site. And there probably is. Maybe go into the lounge, right? And just say, hey, does anybody have a Tom DeMark script they can share with me that they wrote themselves? All right, so now we'll circle back and look at this first question. The only reason why I skipped over is because they're asking for a few different names. So what we can probably do, just keep this really simple, is why don't we go new layout, and we'll go show requests, something like that. And if you people are asking for cryptocurrencies, me to actually look at them, you have to understand that you can't just ask dent or spell or storage. You really have to ask specifically versus this asset. A lot of people trade, crypto versus Bitcoin. They trade crypto versus euros, crypto versus US dollars. So there's all those. And then there's a question of where are you trading this? I can tell you, I've got a bunch of orders and positions now working on crack, and I kind of gave up on the DeFi thing. I'm not really that good at that stuff. So actually, it was interesting. How did I spend my Saturday? I spent my Saturday, whether I can show you this or not. Let's see. I don't necessarily need to go through the specifics of it, but just so you can get an idea. This is now my order book on Kraken. So, and you can see I've got a whole bunch of orders working, a couple sells because we got filled on a few of the shit coins that I've been wanting to buy. I think I got filled on some ADA as well, but a lot of buy orders because I want to be buying all through this period of weakness here over the next few months. And if anything, I'm kind of hoping to see a bit more weakness. So, please understand are you asking me to look at this versus currency? Are you asking me to look at this versus crypto? Are you asking me to look at it on a Chinese exchange? Are you asking me to look at this on an American exchange, European exchange? I mean, fuck, do you hear what the Europeans are going to do to us here? These cocksuckers. I mean, talk about socialism up the ass. The idiots, and really, I don't know who the hell advises this. It's just absolute and utter stupidity. But like the Danes now, that Denmark is actually saying that they're going to try and pass legislation to tax unrealized capital gains on cryptocurrency. Well, you want the easiest way to absolutely destroy a crypto industry and actually encourage anybody who has any net worth or net wealth in crypto in Denmark to get the fuck out of there ASAP. Well, that's about the easiest way to do it. And it's fools who all they really want to do is soak the rich, soak the rich. They spend their whole lives, like the idiot who's a fucking finance minister of my country. She literally, her whole life, she was a journalism major and she was a trade representative, minor secretary or State Department minor official. All of a sudden, this person becomes a finance minister of a G7 country. I mean, there's got to be some qualifications for these jobs. And if anything, the banksters, they love this. We got this stupid idiot journalist in charge of the finance department of this country. Oh, we're going to fucking rake her over the coals. Wow, this is going to be so much fun. I mean, it's just, you actually get to the point where you go, these democracies, I hope you realize there was a Rothschilds who famously said that he didn't give a shit whether it was a right-wing fascist dictator or whether it was some over-the-top socialist, woke, fake breast wearing shop teachers running the country. All they want to do is make damn sure that the government borrows and borrows and borrows and borrows. So they are debt slaves. And it doesn't matter who's in charge, because if it's the fascists, then they'll go and blow all their fucking money on military and murdering their enemies. If it's the socialists, then they'll go and borrow money to try and make the poor people relatively happy. And what's so sad is it makes very little difference in their lives. All it does is it just expands the size of government. And of course, it makes all the taxpayers moan under the inflation. And, sadly, of course, under the fascist military ramping up and spending is also hyperinflationary. So, either way, the banksters absolutely love this. But I might make the argument that these democratically elected governments, when people with a completely straight face say something like, well, we're going to tax unrealized capital gains, what they're really saying is, don't invest in anything in our country because we're going to basically take the money from you. That's what they're saying. And it's something like a 47% tax rate. I mean, you Europeans, for God's sakes, you better stand up and say something. And I can understand, of course, the banksters own the U.S. system. But at the same time, too, I think there are enough Donald Trumps and the megas and all those kind of people in the United States that are actually control the Congress. Like I said, this is the one reason why I absolutely love the United States system, because it basically dilutes the power of these politicians. And so as a result, I don't think things like taxing unrealized capital gains. It's kind of interesting in the United States. Crypto has been heavily supporting both the Democrat and the Republican political parties. So there's no way in hell there is ever going to be a taxation of unrealized capital gains in the United States of America, because crypto owns the politicians there. It's just not going to happen. But someplace like Denmark, oh my God. And this is going to set a really dangerous precedent for people like Lagarde, because it's going to give them the green light just to absolutely shit on crypto over there in Europe. I feel kind of badly for your society. I can't believe how these banksters manipulate the politicians to basically get exactly what they want, and it doesn't seem to be any recourse for you poor politicians. And I gotta say, obviously it's very politically incorrect, but I absolutely love the United States of America system because of that dilution of power. And no one person, like in my country, this one little dickwad is basically become a self-appointed despot. And he's completely destroyed the country. All right, I'm getting to it. I know I'm taking forever. Would you please stop talking about other things and get on to the damn coins? So what'd you say here? Could you discuss dense spell storage in Chicken Show? Okay, but where do you want me? Do you want it versus US dollars? Do you want it versus euro? Do you want it on Binance? Do you want it on? I was hoping, I mean, all you've done here is just replicated the question, but I was hoping you'd give me a little bit more context. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. I'm taking forever and not really saying anything. So let's get on with this. Dent. Where do you think we should look at this, Chris? Binance and Tethers? Actually, I could buy it on Kraken. So if it's a buy, maybe I should go over to Kraken and buy it there. It's at the bottom end of the range. Not really a big surprise there. Don't have a lot of price data to work with. I think you can see the bottom right here. Boom. So that's some sort of panic dump low. Not really a big surprise. We're sort of flirting around with going down into those levels. This is a weekly price chart. I suppose if we look at the dailies, where is that line? There it is. So you could very easily see the market have to work its way back down into these levels. Wouldn't be hugely surprising. Good old crypto. Wicks and tails like to be eaten. So you can see big old tail. I suppose a local low for this particular cycle is probably down in that area. Tail came down into that area. So, this is actually like a visual representation of demand whenever you see these big tails. So somebody's in there buying. On balance, I mean, it's not a terrible name to be thinking about. Definitely sort of like nanny nibble kind of stuff. We'd use the term little old lady, but some bastard on the internet's gone and hijacked that term. So I think maybe we should, I'm not quite sure how to approach that going forward. You can see, I mean, I always suggest to you people that you often look back in hindsight and see that the market actually does bottom off of 78.6s. So not really a big surprise. This kind of looks like a shoulder, head, shoulder. Can't really have a lower right shoulder though. But you can kind of see. I mean, you could also say, well, this looks like a cup and maybe a handle, that kind of idea. I think you can make the argument there's some sort of pivot here. And, does the market want to go and actually put in market structure below that level? Right? A breakout through there will tell you that, yep, it's ready to go. So I would say now you're in cheap ass mode. Anytime you can buy 78.6 to 88.6 area, basically you're coming in at the bottom end of the range. If you are nanny nibbling, totally happy, totally fine with you doing that. Is this like a trade? And I've got a setup to work with here to help my trade. No, not really. It looks like we've broken down trend resistance, so that's good. And show me W's on other sides of trend lines, and you probably have a trade set up. You could probably make the argument there's a cute little W you could have bought right there, translated into a nice move up. Kind of wishy-washy. Didn't really get busted out here, but lots of back and forth. I think probably the W that really defines that this is a bull is that there. So the fact that we rallied up into that high and then were rejected off of it means to me what I would just simply say is this is what they call a narrow sideways channel. There's the top end of your channel. There is the bottom end of your channel. Wicks and tails like to be eaten. There's a bunch of trap bulls up there. So we rally up into that area. They get, politely opportunity to get out, and they get out. Same thing on the bottom. Maybe somebody sold and they really didn't want to come back down into candle body highs and lows for trade location. Not a big surprise. That gets bid up. So, if I was, trying to be a cheap ass and trying to work my stink bids, I've got the higher time frame reload zone. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. And then I would just simply draw reload zones off of this range and just work your stink bids down in things like 78.6s. And interesting, look at that. There's a cute little price gap right there. So you can see there's a gap right at Brian 78.6. Candle body highs or trade location. I mean, that was a killer trade level right there. And sure enough, look how they brought it down. There was probably so many orders in that gap that as soon as it got down into that area, probably ran into like big buy walls and woohoo, get me the fuck out of there. So, there's your trade. You want to be a sharpshooter? That's where you're supposed to enter. And then conversely, on the sell side, if we do work our way back up top here, and I guess I would use this low right now, and not a big surprise as we head into those areas and wicks and tails and all that crap, right? Not a big surprise to see some sellers there. So, pretty business as usual. Little old lady-ish, not really a trade setup. So, go and do your nanny nibbles in trade location. If this was me, I'd throw my stink bid in down in this window right in here and just let the order work for the next little while. There is an M here now in price, so it's not like this thing's taking off, and I don't see any great momentum here or volume or anything. My hunch is, especially with the election coming up here, I would not be surprised if this thing's basically going to play ping pong in that range. All right, so that's number one. Number two was actually, I like Spell. I was trying to buy some. In fact, I think I have an order working to buy some Spell. In fact, probably can see it on this screen over here. So where is Spell? And actually, I think Chris has some Spell of mine as well. I'd like to add to this position. So you can see you've got the alert set, 78.6, candle body lows, same old, nothing really different here. We've come back down against the bottom end ranges, sitting 78.6, 88.6. So nanny nibbles, more than happy to just go away or go away. Just go ahead and start nibbling away on this thing down in this range. If you're a little old lady, don't risk more than 5% of your stake on any one idea. And I think this is a pretty good example where maybe you're like anywhere along here. I mean, if you did buy in here, I hope you got that double off and were able to get yourself some free coins. Now we're back down against those lows. I would expect the same thing. And, things like 50% rules, probably a good objective going forward. Can you see a double if we hit 50% levels? So right now we're sitting at, I want to be on the buy side here at 460, and I should see 1300 on a 50% retracement. So I'll definitely get my double. Maybe I even have the order working sell half on a triple. I don't like when I see these big spikes like this and then a spike away from the low. And then this thing just kind of, it does a V bottom and then we just go like this because, this is venture cap. And my hunch is that candle body low is your trade location. This tail should be revisited at some point. So if I want to be a cheap ass, and keep in mind, crypto likes to dump violently out of nowhere. And then all of a sudden, everybody that bought up top sort of like, oh shit, I guess I shouldn't have bought. So kind of like what you see here, right? I mean, you can have these face rip dumps. So if I was going to work a bid, I want to work a bid down here against this tail and that candle body low in our sort of venture cap reload zone. I don't want to get suckered into chasing this thing up top here. So as you can see, I've got the alert set. I don't know whether I actually have an order working or not on Spell, but if I did, it would be appropriate. There it is. Trying to buy a little bit for this portfolio. It's about 7 or 8 grand that I've got working on this account. So, 5% of 7 or 8 grand, that should be like $350. So this is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, about a $300-400 order. So it's just business as usual. So where was that? Was that over here? Yeah. So there's your Spell. We've knocked off 2. And like I said, I'm already very interested in buying this one. So I'm right there with you. And little old lady, I don't have any trade setups. They're really, I don't think that this thing gets going in earnest until we start actually Wing on the other side of this trend line, which means, and especially also too, remember last January, February, March, Gucci sweater wearers. Do you think that there's a bunch of people in the public that came in and bought crypto up top here? And don't bullshit me. Let's just be perfectly candid. Come on. So, you know what the answer is. Do you think that there's going to be some tax loss selling into this tax loss selling window? Don't kid yourself here, folks. This is pretty straightforward stuff. And you can also see how this thing kind of swooned into the beginning of 2024. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a bit of a swoon here as well. So yeah, there's somebody who says, wait, yes, wait and buy the end of January. And I hate to say it, but I definitely think in the broader stock market, and I think also in crypto, they're getting ready to knock this thing down. I don't know how far crypto has to go down. A lot of these names, they've already been beat up. So it's not really like they're going to go a hell of a lot lower. What you're probably going to see, and it's actually basically what you see here, what you're probably going to see, and I mean, what would 6 months? My hunch is you're probably going to see a bunch of this, right? And probably the equal distance. So if that's the level that we want to be taking profits at, you could probably also measure there to there. And whatever this is, that's basically just duplicate that. And that might be as long as it takes to get to the next cycle. All right, there to there. So that means, what a big surprise. This is basically what we've been telling everybody on the site is into the end of 2025, 2026. That's your rally window. So just business as usual. Put your cup in the jock strap. All right, there you go. All right, and then last one, and then I'll head off to Lily. So everybody wish Liam and I luck on the road. And unfortunately, I'm sure a lot of you are going, oh, this kind of sucks. It wasn't really that much of a fun presentation. Keep in mind, I don't really want to talk too much about you about like getting too uber excited about the market with this goddamn election next Tuesday. I mean, I would even suggest to most people in this space, just leave everything alone until we're on the other side of this. If you want to work some stink bids in reload zones, great. Take advantage of the discounts through this window. But it's not like we're missing some sort of rip-roaring monster bull market. It just isn't there, folks. I'm sorry. People have their attention elsewhere right now. So, big surprise. Reload zones. Clearly, this has got Brian written all over it. Brian's favorite fibs. And after the fact, you see the markets often bottom off of that 78.6 and you get all pissed off. Oh, geez, if I just nanny nibbled through 78.6s, I'd be rich now. Well, I mean, ironically enough, here's a really good one. Actually, I might even go buy some of this because this was not on my shopping list this particular cycle. Now you've got reload zones in reload zones. And there's good old 78.6s. I might even make the argument here as well. If I'm going to go throw in a stink bid, I like the idea of throwing in stink bids right off of these levels here, right? Candle body lows for trade location. Candle body lows for trade. Look at that cluster, right? And, we, in our level 2 program, we call this tricking out your charts. So you can clearly see where there's a cluster of horizontal support and resistance down on this chart. So you want to go throw a stink bid down in here? I would even say go throw a stink bid and off of that candle body low there. You get some sort of panic dump into those, you might get yourself a really, really cheap asset. Actually, I really like that level. That would be an 88.6 of an 88.6. Damn, Julian should be paying attention to this one. Is this a new bull market? Well, we know our rule. We want to see W's on the other sides of trend lines. Notice breakout, pullback, choppy, choppy, chop. There is a W, so that's not bad. And again, kind of dips against that. This would be like, wouldn't exactly be our shark setup, but this isn't a terrible place for you to go shopping. And then, when we go into our crazy ass rally peak into the end of next year, is it realistic to look for some sort of test of previous cycle peaks? Sure, why not? If these lows hold, then you can start doing crazy things like fog and bombs. What do you think the odds are that a Feigenbaum 2.618 is up into these highs. I'd say probably pretty good. Survey says, boom, 2.618. Oh, not bad. I'm getting pretty good at this. So I would say that what are the odds of you being able to double your money? And i.e. sell half on a double? Don't, for God's sakes, if your asset doubles, don't go and buy more. Right? Just be a good money manager. Kind of so sick of these stupid public, the way they act. But you can clearly see 2.618 into reload zones. I would, if I was going to use sort of an objective to try and get those, what is that? That's going to be like 45 up to the better part of $3. Maybe some sort of insane spike all the way up to 4. Gee whiz, that's a better part of 10x on your money. So in a weird sort of way, you can kind of see history is getting ready to repeat itself. And if you want to just nanny nibble your way in here and accumulate a position against the base of the range, I'm perfectly happy with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. But kind of like what we were just saying there a moment ago, you can see this guy here, there's the base. There is our recent rally peak. So could we say a replication of this as we go through this post-election event? And interesting, look how close we are to this pivot window. That would be right in there. So it's sort of like shoulder. Now, actually, that was probably not the best analogy. I'm just going to say pivot, pivot, pivot. That looks very symmetrical. I would say as of this point, we are ready to start actually looking left and looking for that to start working its way back up. Well, that looks perfectly fine. Do we have that right here in the short term? No. Anything in the short term, I absolutely love. Take advantage. This would be a really good example. Pullbacks are buying opportunities. Is this actually an outright buy here? I don't think so. Still way too early. We'd like to see bull divs. We'd like to see W's in price. You know how the story goes. And then we'll be like, oh my God, this thing's a bull. Ah. Right now, it's just, do you want to take advantage of weakness and buy into weakness and act like an institutional participant? Okay, I think we're going to leave it at that. It is now 7 minutes past the top of the hour. I got to get the fuck out of here. All right, I hope you guys enjoyed the offering. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. And we got one more week of this election craziness, and then, the real show really starts. Have yourselves a great afternoon. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. Don't take no with nickels. Remember what your number one job is, and all the best. The only club price is. Bye for now.